So for more insight, we now welcome Natia Seskuria, Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute and a lecturer in Russian politics. Thank you so much for your time on this day. So there are a range of developing issues, starting with the recent referenda, described, as we just heard, as a sham by many countries, including Israel. Is it likely Vladimir Putin will go ahead with his annexation announcement in the Russian parliament on Friday, despite the condemnation in the West? What is likely to happen next? Talk us through the process in those four regions.
Sure, of course. Thank you very much for having me. I think it is highly likely, and the reason why Russia staged these illegal referendums is precisely to annex these territories, and formal annexation is part of the Russian playbook. We have seen that in 2014, for example, when Russia organized another sham referendum in Crimea. Then they used this as a pretext to announce that any Ukrainian move towards Crimea would be regarded as a declaration of the war. So now we see that Russia is increasingly struggling. Russian forces are struggling in Ukraine to win this war militarily. So Putin is resorting to other options, remaining options that he has nowadays. And unfortunately, despite the condemnations, which are obviously very important at the global level, Putin does not care about what the Western community and what the liberal democratic community thinks of his decisions. So it is highly likely that he will go ahead and announce the formal integration of these illegally Russian-occupied territories of Ukraine.
We'll be watching certainly to see the announcement on Friday if it does in fact happen. Meanwhile, another development, the EU says leaks in two major gas pipelines from Russia to Europe were caused by sabotage. It stopped short of directly accusing Russia. The European Commission head, though, Ursula von der Leyen, did say that any deliberate disruption to the Nord Stream pipeline would result in the strongest possible response. Is Moscow behind this? Your thoughts? And if so, what do you understand the EU's vow of the strongest possible response?
I think it is highly likely that this is what we are seeing now is a sabotage operation, and this is not the first time when Russia is weaponizing its resources to make sure that they put pressure on Europe. So, as we know, winter is coming, and this winter will be a huge challenge for the European nations. And I think what Putin is counting on is precisely to use its resources in order to put pressure on the European governments, and he's hoping that the Europeans themselves will be willing to put pressure on their governments and to demand that the local governments would focus more on the domestic issues and on resolving the energy issues rather than helping Ukraine. I don't think that this will necessarily happen because I think that the Western unity is quite strong at this point, but it will be a huge challenge for the Western nations to overcome this energy crisis. At the same time, I think it is very important that the EU continues its sanctions policy, and we have seen that Ursula von der Leyen also announced that there will be further sanctions against Russia, and I think this would be extremely important in order to make sure that the EU stays consistent in terms of weakening Russia from economic point of view, and hopefully this will also put an extreme pressure on Russia's ability to wage this war in a long-term perspective.
We always appreciate your insights. Natia Seskuria, Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, thank you so much for your time on this day. Be well.